Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the view from the opposition. And this week we're joined by Simon Bajkowski from the MEN, who covers Manchester City. He'll be making the journey up to St James's Park for the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final. Simon, welcome to the show. How are you keeping? You well?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. I missed the trip up in the league, so I'm quite happy that they've drawn them in the cup, and I get to go to St James's this season.
It's a busy time for everyone, and I know more so than you guys covering City, because like Newcastle, the games are coming thick and fast. Given that City's priorities are slightly different to Newcastle, obviously the main one being wanting to win the Premier League and also the Champions League, where does this cup tie lie in their priority for the rest of the season, do you think?
I think it's always going to be the lowest priority. But at the same time, it is a competition that Guardiola really loves. I don't think any other manager has won it more times than he has. I think he's level with Fergie and Brian Clough, and it was the first competition he won in English football, and one that kind of accompanied one of the best seasons he's ever had, and Man City have ever had, and has been seen in English football in 2018. So there are really special memories for it. What Guardiola has always said is that you can only attack it if you've got the squad. And if you'd asked me a week ago if City have the squad, I'd have said absolutely no. A week on, they're in a better position. They're still pretty weak, relatively speaking, going into it, but they've got a bit more reason to attack this game.
When you looked at the starting 11 in the FA Cup against Exeter, obviously City winning 10-1, were you slightly surprised at the big names who did start that game?
Yeah, very surprised. It felt like it was... I think if City had won any of the last three games before that, 3 draws in a row in the Premier League, I don't think it would have been as strong a team. But the fact that they hadn't won meant that the manager said, you've got to start winning games again if you want rest days and things like that. So it was a surprisingly strong team. I think Gary Caldwell and Exeter were pretty shell-shocked to see Erling Haaland in the 11, especially. But it was a strong team, and players were brought off the bench in the second half as well, first-team players, senior players. So there really was no let-up, and I think that has sent kind of a message to the City team and squad of what Guardiola does expect from them in every competition.
And Semenyo started, he got a goal as well and an assist, and I think Newcastle United fans have been slightly put out by the fact that there's been a rule change, which means he'll start or can at least be involved on Tuesday. I mean, do we expect him to be starting, or will it be from the bench, do you think?
No, I think he'll start. He came off after an hour on Saturday, so I think he will start. He's kind of used to playing every game for Bournemouth, and although that sometimes is once a week, I think they've been busier over the Christmas period, so he will come in. I think he'll start on the left wing probably, and be a real asset. It is a real boost to City, this rule change that means that he can play, and that I think Max Allain can play as well at centre back, because centre back is where they've had real personnel issues with kind of 3.5 defenders injured. So they will, I think both of those players will probably start, and City will be considerably stronger for it.
Which is brilliant, given that Newcastle United are kind of in the middle of a defensive injury crisis, injuries. So we saw on Saturday in the FA Cup that Malik Thiaw and Sven Botman started and ended up having to play 120 minutes, and that's going to have to be the partnership on Tuesday. I mean, look, obviously, with most Premier League managers, with most top-class managers, it's all about how your team does. You don't worry too much about the opposition, but I guess Pep, he will be casting an eye over who Newcastle have got available, and he'll be looking at Newcastle's injuries in defence and be thinking, yeah, it's not their strongest backline, so we can maybe even have an easier day of it.
Yeah, I think Pep and Eddie might be sort of swapping notes on who has it worst before or after the game. It's this first leg anyway seems to have come at the wrong time for both of them. But it certainly does make City's life easier. And sort of if you roll back to Wednesday night when City had drawn against Brighton, and it was all doom and gloom. And then Arsenal drew with Liverpool at the top of the Premier League to mean that the lead wasn't extended to 8 points. And then they signed Semenyo, and then they beat Exeter 10-1. And then they've come out of that Exeter game and seen Newcastle taken to 120 minutes and Eddie Howe having to play kind of everyone who he didn't want to play, really, because even those that didn't start then came on and played all of extra time and things like that. So City's mood in kind of less than a week is a lot better for kind of external factors that have gone in their favour, and one of those is the tough ride that Newcastle have kind of come into at the minute as well.
But I guess if you're Eddie Howe, you'll be looking at how Man City have performed of late, and it isn't the Man City that we've come to love and maybe fear, even though obviously they did win 10-1, they still conceded that goal. You mentioned that Brighton game. I mean, there are vulnerabilities that Newcastle can attack on Tuesday.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that is one of the most important things of this season that not many people have picked up on, really. But like, this is not the all-conquering City team that won the league 4 years in a row. You know, I think on Saturday was after Saturday, 13 players have debuted for City this season, and 7 of those are academy, but 6 first teamers. It is a lot of change, and Pep speaks about it as a new team. You know, on tomorrow against Newcastle, he'll have James Trafford in goal, who arrived in summer and hasn't played much. He'll have a centre-back partnership of Kusanov and Max Allain, probably. And, you know, into that team as well, new signing Semenyo. So it's not the team that kind of go everywhere and know how to win everything. And that's what Guardiola is trying to get. And you can only get that by playing in these big games and going to the big stadiums. And one of the most pleasing aspects for Pep this season for City is that they got a point at Arsenal this year. They went away to Real Madrid and won, even though they didn't play particularly well. But Newcastle is as tough a place to go as anywhere, you know, and even when the personnel in the Newcastle team aren't quite what Eddie Howe would want them to be, you still have that huge atmosphere and just pressure. And, you know, Newcastle defending champions as well. There is expectation at St. James's. So this will be a real test for a City team that isn't what it used to be.
Remember that game that Newcastle United won a few months back, 2-1, Harvey Barnes got the double. And for me, that's the best performance we've seen by Newcastle United this season. I thought they were really good value for that victory over Manchester City. I thought tactically Eddie Howe got it absolutely spot on with the 2 fullbacks kind of coming into the centre and then the wingers dropping back and helping out. And actually looking at the team that Newcastle started that day, only Livramento should be missing. Jacob Murphy maybe, but we think he should be okay. So only Livramento will be missing from that start 11. So, you know, they may be in the middle of an injury crisis, but actually, sorry, Fabian Schär as well, because it'll be bottom at centre back. So missing 2 big names there, but you know, they've still got the core of that team that beat City back in November. So that'll give Newcastle United hope. And as you mentioned, the atmosphere and the occasion, because they are defending champions in St. James's Park under the light, is can be quite a special thing. But do you think the fact that City are away first plays into their hands?
I think it helps City. I think it always helps the team who has the home leg second, and that's why it's kind of seeded in UEFA competitions. And it probably also helps City that, you know, there are still some players in their squad that are used to playing 2-legged ties, and often in the Champions League, a lot of 2-legged ties where they've got the home leg second. But I mean, again, Pep is talking about this, about most of his team now who aren't used to that and who are going to have to learn the dynamics of a 2-legged tie. And, you know, I think if City can come away with a draw from tomorrow, they would be absolutely delighted, especially with the second leg being 3 weeks away, when the landscape can be very, very different. But, you know, any time you can come away from St. James's without being beaten is a very good result. And City will still play to win, and they'll still play to try and get as much advantage as they can. But if they're losing 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, I don't think they'll be going out and risking losing 2 or 3-0. As long as they're playing sensibly for the whole tie.
Do you think Guardiola will have taken anything from that defeat back in November and learned from it, or again, is he kind of just concentrating on I guess the positives and the weaponry that his side bring to this clash?
Yeah, I think it feels at the minute like he's expecting more from Haaland, who didn't score in November, did he? But he's not scored that many in the last few games. I think his last goal from open play was before Christmas. So, and City have sort of significantly underperformed their XG for the chances they've created in the last 3 games that they've drawn. So he will be looking for Haaland to show more. I think it's just, I think if anything from the defeat at St James's, it's that hope that the players have learned from the atmosphere, and it felt in that game like Newcastle got on top of City very early on. I think they forced Foden to be dispossessed and then tested Donnarumma or something like that. But it really set the marker. And I've kind of also been impressed by Newcastle over the years even when that doesn't happen, and they can have 10, 15 minutes where things are a bit flat, that as soon as something ignites, they can very quickly turn 1 goal into 2, and you're suddenly in trouble as an opposition team. So I think Guardiola will want his players to kind of play the team, play the occasion, play the crowd, and keep their emotions and game managements in check. And if they can have learned to do that better from what having happened in November when they lost at St James's, then that will be significant progress for them.
Yeah, I think if you don't want it as much as the Newcastle United players, or indeed the fans when you play at St James's Park, especially if you're a big side, no bigger than the Man City really, and that can allow Newcastle United to get on top of the opposition. I think that's exactly what happened back in November. Newcastle just seemed to want that little bit more, ran those few extra yards, and the high intensity was back, which we haven't seen all season, but was certainly there for that game. So it's going to be fascinating to see if Newcastle can match what they put out a couple of months back. And it's also going to be fascinating as well. And I'm intrigued to get your answer on this, because City have won like everything possible. Against Arsenal in the first leg and the second leg of the semi-final last time out, obviously everyone was like, oh, it's Arsenal, it's going to be a huge test, they were going strong in the league. And Newcastle went out and beat Arsenal and got to the final. And yeah, I felt like it was obviously because we hadn't won a major trophy in 70 years, or a major domestic trophy since 55. But obviously that's happened now. And it's really interesting to try and understand the winning mentality of a team when they do win something and that kind of initial hunger is gone. I mean, how does Pep keep that installed in his players? Because like I say, City have won pretty much everything that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is genius. It's, Pep Guardiola is a generational, once-in-a-lifetime manager who manages to get more out of his players every season going. When City won back-to-back league titles in 18 and 19, they were the first team in a decade in the Premier League to do it. They've won 4 Carabao Cups in a row during his time. When they so after the treble in 2023, the motivation was really down, and they started the 23-24 season really badly, and not necessarily results but just performances. And the players came back from the October international break, and Pep had a sign installed in the boot room, so every player would see it every day as they walked out to training, saying, no team has ever won 4 Premier League titles in a row, ... yet. And the players saw that every day, and every day they walked out and they became the first team to do 4 league titles. And after that, last season was a bit of a mess. Yes, because of injuries, but also because there was nothing really to play for and to go for. 5 in a row, but 4 was the history. 4 was, you will be in the history books, and probably no one will ever do it again. So it's incredibly hard to win anything in this era, especially when you've got the likes of City and Arsenal and Chelsea and everyone else. But the only thing that's harder than winning something is winning it again. And it is, credit to Newcastle that they're in the semi-final and fighting for it again, as well as, juggling the FA Cup and the Champions League and the Premier League, because it's horrible and you're going to get ups and downs all the way through. So to have that kind of consistency is testament to all the hard work that goes on. But it is really, really hard. And, I guess Newcastle players and fans have just kind of got to bottle that feeling up of Wembley last year and think how amazing it was to do it, and think, I need to do that again. I need to replicate that. And, sort of almost think that you need to prove yourself all over again.
Yeah, I mean, for the first time today, ahead of recording the match preview and now the view from the opposition, I've allowed myself a little thought ahead, a little look ahead to more. Little butterflies are there, but I mean, this is a massive test, and I was a lot more confident last time around. I mean, listeners and viewers of the podcast know that I'd already booked my hotel when we got going Arsenal because I was that confident.
Yeah.
This time, my wallet's firmly in my pocket at the moment in time. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box to get a discount offer on your plan. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. One subscription, 10 devices, and it'll keep you safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi. And a huge thanks as well to fpro.com, the training map which can enhance your skills as a footballer, improves your concentration. It's done via some training drills that have been designed by UEFA coaches. We've got up to 60% off if you head over to fpro.com/EIBW20. Simon, I'm a little bit disappointed in Pep actually, because for the first time in, I would say, probably maybe 6 press conferences, unless you're going to tell me otherwise, because I haven't yet listened to the embargoed one, he doesn't mention Bruno Guimaraes, because usually he sings the song about him and everything. He absolutely adores the Brazilian, and he's going to be key for Newcastle on Tuesday. He came off the bench against Bournemouth and really kind of upped the tempo, and we've seen just how important he is. He's, one of the top scorers so far this campaign. Pep loves him. I guess if I ask you the player that you think Pep will be looking to shut up and keep quiet, it probably will be Bruno.
Sorry, I think so. He's obviously having an amazing season. Speaking as a sort of dogged non-owner of him in FPL, I'm kind of saying it through gritted teeth that he keeps on scoring goals and keeps on pulling out these moments. But you are right. There wasn't a mention of him today, I don't think. I think obviously Bruno, for his kind of conducting skills and orchestrating skills in that midfield. But I would also say that, City's kryptonite over the years has been kind of fast breaks and players who can cause defenders real problems with pace. So, I mean, Anthony Gordon, his form has been a bit up and down, but he's been better at St James's Park, hasn't he? And then Harvey Barnes as well, who got the winner in the league game. I think they will they will be the ones that his main focus is on. Obviously, there's Voltemada and Visser as well up front to keep an eye on. But yeah, it's always a worry, because not only are those players kind of obviously hugely talented, but also they get the crowd up more than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of games that Anthony Gordon tends to get up for. Like you say, he's been very hit and miss, hasn't scored a goal in open play in the Premier League or domestically actually for a long time, come to think of it. He's scoring penalties, though, which is a good thing. And you mentioned Wissa and Valdemar there. I mean, it's likely only one will start. Both started against Bournemouth in the FA Cup, but Eddie Howe kind of suggested that wouldn't be the case again. Which one do you think Man City would prefer to defend against?
I think Kusanov would probably like the physical battle of Voltemada. But that's not to say that he'd win it necessarily. I think Visser would maybe give them more problems, or certainly kind of gave them plenty of problems when he played for Brentford. So It's an interesting question in that it's an interesting choice that Eddie Howe has. I can't think of too many teams that have kind of such contrasting options for his front man. So I guess that will keep City guessing a bit right up to when the team news comes out.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned James Trafford earlier in the show. Obviously, we know how long Newcastle United courted him, didn't get his signature again. He's been linked once more this month with his City career not going quite to plan. He is likely to start on Tuesday. I mean, do you think? I mean, he's not a bad goalkeeper, is he? He's just maybe not the right man for Man City at the moment, especially when you had someone like Donnarumma available to bring in.
He's a brilliant goalkeeper. I really feel for James. Tremendous potential when he was in the academy. He's gone away at Burnley. He's proved himself. He's done it. He, genuinely thought that he could be City and England number one for the next 10 years. And then Donnarumma has been signed, and it's kind of, he has to leave basically if he wants to be to at least be England number one, knowing that he won't be City number one. Because again, Donnarumma's only 26, I think. So, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, it's a shame, and I can't speak too much of Newcastle's situation, but it's hard to think that had he chosen Newcastle in the summer, I think he would probably be number one by now with the issues that Pope has had, and would also kind of be enhancing his plan, his claim for the England number one shirt. Whereas at the minute he's struggling to kind of stay in the squad for the World Cup. So I do feel, it's a real shame for Trafford what's happened at City really.
Maybe a bit of a transfer audition ahead of the summer, perhaps, because I'm sure that'll rumour will once again creep up, because certainly Newcastle need to be in the market for a new number one. Although I've learned something new there. I thought Donnarumma must have been over 30, he's 26. So goodness me, that's quite scary because he's a fantastic goalkeeper. But I didn't think we'd have to see too much of him for too long. But oh yeah, wow, okay. Just talk to us then about how you see Tuesday going. What are you expecting? You said that you could see City maybe going for draws. Is how you see it ending up?
I think it will be quite tight. I think City will want a tight game, the sort of game that is decided by a single goal if it isn't level at the end. Like I say, they're in a better position than they were a week ago, but they're still kind of they've got the two first choice centre backs out and the third choice centre back out, so they are kind of drawing on reserves a little bit, and they've got the Manchester derby at the end of the week to think about as well. So I think given that they're not at their best, they will try and kind of get out of the crucible that is St James's kind of with anything they can get. So I think, I would be surprised if it was a game of loads of chances. But if it is, I think that would probably be more to Newcastle's benefit than to City's.
So there we go, ladies and gents. It's going to be a fascinating night on Tyneside on Tuesday. Thanks to Simon for popping onto the podcast and providing the insight into Manchester City. To you guys watching and listening, do get in the comments and let us know your thoughts on anything that we've discussed today in today's episode. If you're looking enough to be going to the game, do enjoy it. I'll be back later in the week, hopefully, to talk about Newcastle's win over Manchester City in the League Cup.